Anything Can Happen Friday, the art and cultural side of Southeast Asia.
Hello and welcome back to Durian ASEAN. Today you're with Gowri and Grace on our Anything Can Happen Friday, and the discussion for today is about a regional arts conference that will be taking place in Penang in August. And this is for all the creative practitioners and business leaders out there. It's called the Borak Art Series, and we will be talking to the director shortly. But before that, I would like you guys to listen to a short clip which is inclusive of interviews done with people about why arts and culture is so important to us. And after that, we will resume with our interview with our guest for today.
Why is art and culture important? I think it's a fundamental question.
Les arts, c'est là où on va se définir comme société, c'est là qu'on va se définir comme peuple, comme pays.
Arts and culture are the very core of our identity and our existence. That's what defines us, that's what distinguishes us from others.
If you ask an artist why art is important, you might get their hackles up a little bit because they already know why art is important. They have personal experience with it. And maybe to artists it feels like the answer should be a given.
Ducked into a driveway because you're hiding from someone who...
But of course, if we still need to give other reasons, the simplest reason why arts and culture are important is that it's a fabulous investment.
Lorsqu'on regarde les statistiques en Amérique du Nord ici, alors lorsque vous investissez $1 dans les arts et la culture, il y a une retombée économique de $7, comme on dit communément un spin-off de $7. Au niveau économique, c'est incroyable, au niveau de l'effet que ça au niveau économique pour des communautés comme la nôtre et toutes les communautés, que ce soit ici au Nouveau-Brunswick ou ailleurs.
Si tu vis dans une ville qui a une théâtre, ben là tu as de la tourisme parce que les gens viennent des autres villes pour venir voir des pièces de théâtre, et quand ils viennent à ton ville, ils vont rester dans des hôtels, et même les gens de ton ville qui vont au théâtre, ils vont probablement aller manger avant le théâtre, faire une soirée, alors ils mangent à des restaurants. Alors ça, ils vont contribuer à l'économie par manger à un restaurant, aller au théâtre, puis après ça, peut-être aller prendre un verre de vin après.
Richard Florida, who's written extensively about creative economies and the idea that different economies around the world that have vibrant arts and cultural sectors, they attract employees, especially high-tech employees, stay in communities that have all, dance and art and literary festivals, this sort of thing. This makes our communities more livable for everybody.
And the thing about narrative, the thing about literature and art, is it imagines into being, and this is a kind of theoretical concept, but art imagines into being the places that it explains. So we know who we are by virtue of the artists who tell us who we are.
We cannot be looking for others, someone coming from Hollywood or someone coming from overseas, to help us preserve our culture, our heritage. So therefore the responsibility lies on our shoulders to preserve what is ours, distinctly ours, to promote it, to support it, and to have it there for future generations.
There's all manner of negative designations that get attached to New Brunswick. The simple fact of the matter is, if you look at the artistic work done in New Brunswick, artists are not saying that at all, but we tend to hear the negative that comes from the outside more readily than we hear the positive that comes from the inside.
Ordinary night inside your head, ignoring all the signs you should have read.
Art is important in the same way that a lot of the things of the spirit and the mind are important. And we can't really say, you can say that a carpenter is important because he makes you a house. And in New Brunswick, you need a house. A farmer is important because he provides you food. But somehow people have, since the very beginning of Homo sapiens, they've decided that we are more than our bodies. There's something about our spirit, our soul, our brain that needs nourishing. And and how do we do that?
Funding for the arts is always a challenge. This is when I get together with my colleagues across the country. This is what we talk about. Where are the sources of revenue? What are funders looking for? How challenging is it to get, and all of that kind of thing. And what I find when I talk to my colleagues elsewhere in the country is that there are many sources that they can look at. There's never enough. You could always do more with more. But when I talk to people in Saskatchewan, in Ontario, in British Columbia, there are 5 or 6 or 7 different sources that they can look at to help fund their activities and to keep costs lower for the people that they're serving. And that's not true. The context is different. In particular provinces, Nova Scotia is different, and Quebec is different, and we all operate in a different context. But New Brunswick in Canada, in my experience, is unique in how limited the multiple sources of funding are. There's government, 2 or 3 sort of major players, and some sort of small, municipalities and small budgets from community foundations, and that's really it.
It really is everybody's responsibility. We're not just looking for government handouts. We're trying to make communities work together to support communities.
If there's anything that Newfoundland artists have taught us, if there's anything that Acadian artists have taught us, and that is responsibility for your artistic community starts at home. It's built to some extent by federal and provincial subsidy, but really it's local people who are responsible for managing and for kind of what we might call a cultural stewardship. That always has to start at home, and most of the responsibility has to begin at home.
None of it is sure. I mean, from year to year, we don't know what we're going to get, if we're going to get. It's very difficult to be entrepreneurial and businesslike when you have no assurance from year to year that you're going to get anything. So that's a very difficult way to do business. So I think arts and culture, it has grown up an awful lot, even just in the last 15 or 20 years. We've become much more businesslike, much more entrepreneurial. But if we still have these constraints on us to not have things such as core funding, not have that kind of support to know from year to year that will even exist, that makes business very difficult.
Parce que la façon dont je vois ça présentement, quand je rencontre des jeunes qui veulent être artistes, il y a seulement 2 façons. C'est soit que tu te fais financer par en appliquant chaque année, qui peut être stressant, surtout quand tu es en début de carrière, lorsque tu dépends des fonds pour survivre, ou que c'est parce qu'il y a des gens qui croient dans ce que tu fais ou qui aiment, donc qui aiment collectionner le travail dont tu fais.
I think that one thing that people need to understand is that while we are always looking for large donations, and typically those large donations come from corporations, even a very small donation can make a huge difference, and I can give you an example of how that might work. So in our Outreach programming, where we offer arts-based workshops to members of underprivileged communities, we are able to offer free skills training in the arts to individuals for approximately $20 per person. And so if someone makes a donation of $500 how many people are they reaching? How many lives are they changing with just that small donations?
Il y a une autre lieu où moi j'aimerais voir plus de développement dans les arts, dans la Nouveau-Brunswick et dans l'Atlantique en général. Mais souvent on n'a pas assez d'argent parce que toutes les autres choses, il faut qu'on fasse toutes les autres choses avant qu'on passe à quelque chose d'autre. Mais la prochaine étape que moi je crois qui est vraiment importante pour notre région en particulier, c'est le développement d'un discours critique autour de l'art. Et ça veut dire l'écriture.
Because look, in an environment where there's no provincial encyclopedia, no contemporary history of the province of New Brunswick, no provincial curriculum, and these things continue to exist, there's all the more reason to cultivate those resources for self-knowledge right here. And if we don't do that, then we become victim to what other people write about us and what other people say about us. And what they've written and said about us is largely not very positive. We're considered one of the have-not regions of the country, when in fact there's been a history and an abundance of self-reliance and sustainability in the East Coast. It's just that without the intellectual apparatus, without the artistic apparatus to reflect that, it's been very hard to convince our own citizenry and citizens from the rest of the country that what happens here really has mattered.
This is it, the time has come. The time to settle down. Before I walk these city streets and see you're not around.
L'art, c'est ça, permet un regard sur nous autres mêmes. Donc, je crois que ça reste important. C'est quelque chose qui... moi, que comme société, on devrait ne pas juste considérer ça comme un luxe, mais une nécessité, en tout cas, pour garder notre tête sur les épaules et savoir où est-ce qu'on s'en va.
There's a fabulous quote by Northrop Frye in which he talks about imagination, and it is: the fundamental job of imagination in ordinary life is to create out of the society we have to live in a vision of the society we want to live in. And I think that's what arts and culture does for us. It helps to educate our imagination, helps us to envision what the world could be like. And it doesn't matter what your job is, if you're in an industrial sector, you're a lawyer, you're picking up garbage. I mean, you need to have this inspiration. You need to have a vision of how you can make the world a better place. And I think that's where arts and culture come in and help us.
And you'll be gone before I know it. And before I know you well.
Anything can happen Friday. The art and cultural side of Southeast Asia.
Hello and welcome back to Duran ASEAN. You're with Gowri
and Grace.
And of course, this is your Anything Can Happen Friday on Duran ASEAN. And as always, every Friday we bring you different types of social cultural topics to discuss with our guests. And today we will be talking about the Borak Arts Festival, which is regional arts, which is happening end of August on the 29th and 30th in Penang. And with us today we have the director of My Performing Arts Agency, Izan Satrina. So let's say good morning to her. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me here. It's really
right.
good.
So before we start, maybe a little introduction to yourself, Izan. What do you do, and what's the story with My Performing Arts Agency?
Sure. So My Performing Arts Agency, or in short, MIPA, we are a private and independent outfit, and we work on bridging the gap between both the public and private sector with the arts community, and we do that via specific platforms with the aim of building a better ecosystem for the arts.
Right. Why is it important to connect these different parties that you mentioned?
Well, I think these three sectors, we talk in different languages, and sometimes we hardly talk to each other. I think with the community, we're busy doing productions, we want to make art, and with the government, there's always something far more important to look at, like poverty or education and basic necessities to provide the people. And the private sector, they're talking about ROI, they're talking about at the end of the day what do they get, and so those three sectors need to be somehow connected, and that's how we come in and try to help.
So what is MyPa's objective exactly?
Well, I think at the end of the day, we want to escalate the arts up the value chain. The arts in Malaysia has always been, I always say it as we're anak tiri lah, you know. That may be dramatic, but many years ago we were a ministry of our own, the Ministry of Arts and Culture, and since then it's been moved from one ministry to another ministry and another ministry, and that has happened every 3 or 4 years. It's like a anak that no one wants.
Right.
But now we're under Ministry of Tourism and Culture, and we're positive, and we hope that there'll be serious strategic involvement to develop this arts industry.
And I think based on your Facebook page, I saw that MyPa invited a lot of guests to give talks, seminars. So what is that about? Is it more on like educating the young people on how to make it in the performing arts for exposure?
Okay, well, for MyPa, we're very big on providing accessibility and building relationships and building knowledge and disseminating that knowledge and information. So one of our critical platforms that we've established is called Borak Art Series, and it's an arts conference for business leaders and of course creative practitioners. And it's really nice because you get these three sectors somehow involved in either keynote session, panel discussions, workshop sessions, roundtable discussions, one-on-one meetings, and it is not every day that you have a stellar lineup of international arts leaders who actually come to Malaysia. So we were really promoting this quite heavily so that our Malaysian arts community and the regional arts community will come together and connect with them.
Right. So the keyword there is accessibility, and also about relationship between industry experts, and also about reaching out to everybody. So that's how Borak Art Series came about.
Yeah, Borak Art started 3 years ago. Really funny story. We were lobbying for an international arts conference to be held in Kuala Lumpur, but they were not too interested. I think they're very interested in going to other places like Australia or Hong Kong or Singapore, Korea, etc., because it's generally very vibrant in terms of their culture. And it just hit us that it's okay. We'll start anew. We can't curse here, right? So they'll be very careful. Oh, it's okay.
Yeah.
So we said, fuck it. We'll do our own conference, and that's how Borak Art Series started. So in 2013, we had it in KLPAC. With the theme of building sustainability in the arts. And we had folks from Korea Arts Management Services and Australia Council come down. And last year we had it in Publica with the theme of building knowledge capacity and funding and mobility, highlighting Japan, New Zealand and Ipoh. We started highlighting local cities as well. And of course funding is such a huge issue. And now in the third year, in conjunction also with Malaysia being the chair of ASEAN, we thought it would be appropriate to celebrate that occasion and have the conference theme as ASEAN in the future, and we're highlighting Cambodia and Indonesia.
So when it comes to art, Southeast Asia in general, we are very rich in art and culture, and it is only right to highlight all those elements and to bring the awareness as well. I mean, if just come back to Malaysia, we think of the art. We already know in our blood that we are so rich in those dance, singing, art, painting. Those are very beautiful elements. It's just that we don't sustain, we don't maintain all those elements to our even to modernize all those elements, it's really poor. So it is good to have a festival or conference or even forum to bring up all those awarenesses.
No, well said. I think we're all very good in starting something, but we're very horrible in sustaining it. And I think it's only because sometimes we're tied back or tied down because of the lack of funding available for the arts. And when we started Borak Arts, we were very fortunate that it was a result of a private-public partnership, and the government was very supportive via the National Creative Industry Policy, and they supported us in the first year and the second year, and in the third year, we because it's a seed funding, we have to start pulling our resources together, and we're very fortunate that it has some brand value for all these partners to come together, like Asia Center Japan. Of course, Georgetown Festival has been very, very helpful and supportive. We have the Australia-Malaysia Institute, Goethe Institute. Recently, French Embassy of Malaysia has also come on board. My Creative Ventures, National Department for Culture and Arts. So we hope to continue and growing this platform.
So what about Borak Arts that you think stood out to these people, that they were interested to, come in and help you guys?
Well, it's definitely not me. But I think the notion of it being a continuous platform, meaning that it will definitely happen on a yearly basis, regardless of what scale, and the idea of all of us coming together to connect to each other via these structured programs, I think has appealed to them, and there have been some successful outcomes out of it. For example, Terry and the Cuz, which are award-winning young artists in Malaysia, they come every year for this, and recently we've managed to help facilitate their submission to pitch to 700 delegates in New York earlier of the year, and the work called Skin, which you'll get to see the weekend of Georgetown Festival, and it's a contemporary dance in a container to just showcase how people are being smuggled. It's all about human trafficking.
Right.
So they're doing a contemporary dance in a container, and suddenly it moves. So it's a really contemporary piece that we also would like to showcase our international delegates, but also because of all these networks that we've established, we're able to bring our community to Australia to be involved in some of their arts events, and recently we just concluded a 1-year working relationship between Korean dancers and Malaysian dancers, and this is all as a result of building connections.
Right. And tell us more about your partnership with Georgetown Festival.
I'll tell you a bit of a history that not everyone knows. It is just bloody hard to meet Josie Day from Georgetown Festival.
I trust you. I've worked with him before.
Yes, and so we've never met in KL.
Right.
We bump into each other at international arts events in Australia and Korea, and we talk in taxis.
But you don't meet in Malaysia.
No. So we actually bump into each other, and we have these little chats in taxis, and that was 2 years ago and 3 years ago, and it's resulted into this partnership between and so MIPA and Georgetown Festival. So we've come together to put this. He has helped curate some of the programs with me and my colleague Pan Kitek, and Georgetown Festival is also helping us with the venue and the F&B, and of course the curation of programming outside Borak Arts, because at the end of the day, when all these international delegates come together, they want to see what work is out there, and they want to be inspired, they want to feel and see and taste Malaysia. So I'm very excited to also see what Georgetown Festival, all things Malaysian work will take place.
And that's also why it's being held in Penang this year, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
There's a few things why it's held in Penang. I think Georgetown Festival is an awesome regional cultural festival, and it provides us a platform to also grow because our conference is regional, not just because we have 2 regional artists, but we have more. But also, one thing we realize is that we never meet our regional artist friends in ASEAN. We actually meet them also recently in Yokohama, Japan, and Seoul, Korea, Australia, New York, and we never actually meet them either in KL or Cambodia.
Right.
And we thought, my God, this is insane, and hence we decided it's necessary. It's necessary to have a theme of ASEAN, only because those efforts of connecting these artists is not available in our region.
Okay. I think it's also be a very perfect time for them to come to Malaysia, especially Penang. Now Penang has become very artsy and a lot of things to see around. So it'll be great for them to come over and say, this is Malaysia.
Yes.
So we will take a short break. So when we come back, we will discuss more about what's in store with Borak Art Series this year.
Anything can happen Friday. The art and cultural side of Southeast Asia.
Hello and welcome back to Durian ASEAN. You're with Gowri
and Grace.
And this is, of course, Anything Can Happen Friday. And we're bringing you the art and cultural side of Southeast Asia. And we still have Izan here with us discussing about the Borak Art Series, which is happening end of August in Penang. So maybe for this part, I want to ask you more about what do you have in store with Borak Arts? What are some of the highlights, conferences, roundtables? What do you have for people who want to attend Borak Arts?
Okay, well, Borak Arts is a 2-day, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. event, and it's quite intense in the sense that, because it's only 2 days, we're trying to squeeze everything in, but they're all very important. So you have panel discussions, and panel discussions will be touching on ASEAN tradition and putting a contemporary spin on it. The other topic is about getting to know our international funding partners with an outlook on ASEAN, so people from Asia Center Japan or Asian Cultural Council, Asia Europe Foundation will all be there. Then you also have a panel discussion about investing in international exchange, distribution, and networking within ASEAN, because I think amongst us we usually don't value as much the networks available within here because we don't meet as often. And the last panel discussion is about aligning arts with digital marketing and how relevant is arts in that space. Then you of course have keynote session. We've just got confirmation that the chairman of Bandung Creative City Forum will actually be coming, so we're very excited. And of course we have country updates. That's very important, and country updates is on Indonesia and Cambodia, and state update on Selangor, hopefully via the Sasaran Arts Festival.
So when you say country updates, you mean we have representatives from those countries telling us what's new?
Yes, and what's happening on their side of town, and what are the opportunities. We have information cells, and you can actually choose which information cell to go to. One is about protecting freedom of expression in ASEAN, and it's done in a workshop format, conducted by Anna Har, Director of Freedom Film Fest, Sharad, he's a journalist and radio from BFM, and of course Pan Ki-tek. And this is, I think, one of the highlights, simply because censorship is so high in ASEAN countries. And I remember one of our artist friends in Laos, the police would come and check on them on a weekly basis to just monitor the work that they do. So how do you, I suppose, negotiate for that space is important. And of course, the other information cell that's happening is a one-to-one meeting, and this is where people like Christopher McDowell from KMP Artists, Marlene from Esplanade Singapore, Andrew Ross from Darwin Festival Australia, Kate from Melbourne Arts Centre, Festival Tokyo folks will all be here, and you have a chance to actually spend one-on-one meetings and have one-on-one with them for 15 minutes. 15 minutes. And this is a valuable experience because you always want to be seen by these established festival directors and venue programmers with hope that one day your work will be presented there. The other really exciting thing about Borak Arts that we've just introduced this year is called Pitchpad ASEAN.
Right.
Now, Pitchpad ASEAN provides you an opportunity to pitch your work to these festival directors and venue programmers. And up to only 10 ASEAN artists will be presenting their work. So the call for application is now. If you go onto our website, you can actually download the form and then email it back to us. And the deadline is end of this month. If you're selected, we'll let you know by early August. And we will actually take care of you flying into Penang.
Okay.
So that you have this opportunity to present to them. We want to see more ASEAN work go beyond.
So what can they
ASEAN.
actually pitch about?
Well, any of their works, and their works must be either in developmental stage or it's a new work that's just been premiered but has yet to tour.
Okay.
So those are the sort of works that these festival directors and venue programmers want to see. In addition to that, Georgetown Festival has agreed to host the selected work in Georgetown Festival 2016.
Okay.
So it's quite exciting. And one of the most popular sessions in Borak Arts is actually the roundtable sessions. We have about 13 tables, ranging from social entrepreneurship money that's administered by Magic or under Ministry of Finance. There's 20 million there. Excuse me. Of course, crowdfunding by Pitchin. You have also a table with collaborating with Cambodia. You have a table with collaborating with Indonesia. Grants under Asian Cultural Council, grants under Think City Grants. There's also a grant table with Japan. So you actually get to meet people behind these programs, administering these grants, stakeholders who are involved in ASEAN, and you get to spend time with them. So we move a group of delegates, 10 of people in a group, and you spend 20 minutes in table 1, and once the bell rings, you move to your other table, and then you move to your other table.
So when it comes to these roundtable sessions, will there be a lot of discussions as well?
You can ask them anything except for their vital stats. But, that's a great opportunity to really ask them about, what would be the best thing to do? What would be the winning application? And I'd like to encourage the table host to actually distribute top 5 tips to the delegates so they immediately have something to also read and ask them on.
And going back to what you were saying earlier about the freedom of expression when it comes to arts, I think that's something that's very important because not only in arts, but it has sort of been an issue in a lot of the Southeast Asian countries, and a lot of people tend to resort to arts to express whatever it is that they feel or their dissatisfaction or what. So it is important, and it's great that you are creating that space for artists to actually express themselves. So what other highlights that you will have, or maybe a couple of sessions that you think is compulsory or will be very helpful for budding performing artists?
Someone recently actually asked what are the top 5 things not to miss when they come to Borak Arts, and I'm very biased because I'm curating it, so it's very hard to say, but if I was wearing a different hat, I would recommend these 5 things. One is to obviously come for Borak Arts is the first thing. Be there because it's the only arts program based in Malaysia that is going to have all these amazing and awesome speakers and buyers by virtue of these festival directors and venue programmers. 2 is that you want to make sure you are noticed. So bring name cards. Introduce yourself. Don't be shy. Say hi. I'm Gowri from Durian ASEAN, and just have a chat, because I think it always starts with a hello. And this hello, like what Joe and I did 3 years ago, has resulted in this collaboration. You just never know what's going to happen.
Correct.
So suitable with your radio theme, the theme for your this morning. Thirdly is that you want to say hello to specific venue programmers or festival directors. Maybe do some research on them as well, and see what they like and see what they're interested in. Because what we've done is we've selected people who are really interested in buying ASEAN work or currently are presenting ASEAN work. So, for example, Festival Tokyo has an ASEAN programming next year. Melbourne Arts Centre has been planning since 2 years ago for their festival in 2017.
Wow, okay.
That revolves around Asia. So they are just swimming in ASEAN and in Asia just to find excellent work.
They're like an eagle looking for their prey.
Yes. Yes. And fourthly is that you do not want to miss Pitch Pad ASEAN. Because it's not every day. It's just once a year. You have this opportunity to pitch your work. It's 10 minutes. It's an elevator pitch. And, of course, lastly is the round table session.
And talking about that, I'm a bit curious as to why countries like Melbourne, Tokyo, Korea, why are the countries outside of ASEAN more interested in our product that we have?
It's really amazing. We were in Korea, and Korea has established a Korea ASEAN program to just get them more involved in the ASEAN discussions. Australia wants to be because they want to be part of Asia, considering they're Asia Pacific. Japan has just launched millions of money allocated in line with building momentum to their Olympics, and that's why they're one of our official partners. They are putting in some money to help us make this happen. Why they're interested is because I think we have a population of more than 600 million people. We are going to be the new economy power if we get our acts right, and there's a lot more to offer, and we may be underestimating it. So I think who knows, will be the next China, and I think that's why everyone is starting to build their cards and placing it all around ASEAN. We should take advantage of it. We're in ASEAN.
Exactly. Like that was my point, because it seems maybe it's because we are here and we're so used to this, used to ASEAN itself being rich in culture and music and theater, that we just take it for granted, and we don't know the value of the gem that we have in our possession. So we have actually other countries who notice that potential that lies in ASEAN, and they have come up with plans on how they can leverage that, but we are still sort of lagging behind in that sense.
But we gotta get our shit together, girlfriend, because this has got to happen.
My opinion is it's very interesting, because when I came to Malaysia, that was like 7 years ago. I found this country has a lot of potential. I'm from Korea, and then because I'm always interested in the arts and performing arts, any entertainment kind, and definitely the scenes in Korea and Malaysia is two different scenes, but we always, like as Koreans, we always look at to find different kinds of elements, to infuse those elements to our country as well. So it's a collaboration, and then that way we can only become innovative and creative, because creativity just people say creativity comes from nothing, but actually you have to borrow ideas from something to develop even further. And what I've realized in Malaysia is that's what's been lacking. We have so many things here, but you just need one or two initiatives to just start it off. Then you can go further. And also sustaining is another one. You have to know how to sustain all those elements.
So it's great that you just said, screw this, we're gonna do it.
Exactly.
Because we need somebody to step up.
I guess we have two mantras. One is that be the change that you want to see, rather than just waiting around for someone else to do it. and that obviously is from Gandhi, and the other one is from my son's favorite cartoon, Turbo. So no dream is too small. No dream is too big, and no dreamer is too small. So when we actually initiated Borak Arts, it really started something quite small in KL Pack, and it's really growing nicely. And funny enough, we have had 2 other states who have already started lobbying for Borak Arts to be part of their state in 2017.
Wow.
So we're already starting to look for the next venue for Borak Arts to be part of, because I think it's quite exciting to get everyone from different countries and the different conversations that they have, and it's a unique experience. So I really hope that our ASEAN friends and our local communities will come for this. And if it's difficult, I mean, we'll try to help and speak to their local counterparts. I mean, we are sending out letters to the different institutions in the different ASEAN countries as well. So, let's just hope for the best. But I think the first one is to make that commitment to come.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we are going to take another short break. When we come back, we will discuss a bit more about Borak Arts before we wrap things up.
Anything can happen Friday. The art and cultural side of Southeast Asia.
Hi and welcome back to Durian ASEAN. This is Gowri
and Grace,
and this is Anything Can Happen Friday. And today we have Izan here with us from my performing arts agency to talk about their latest project, which is the Borak Arts series, which will be happening end of August in Penang. So speaking of the performing arts in Malaysia or even in Southeast Asia, and it's great that your theme this year is ASEAN and the future, because Malaysia is the chairman of ASEAN, and that sort of puts us in the spotlight and gives us an advantage as well, I think. And how is Borak Arts doing its part in becoming ASEAN, or to project ASEAN to a global level?
Well, I think firstly, when we had Borak Arts, it was always like a small thing. We'd take it to different venues, and because of the traction it has gained, we're very blessed and very fortunate that we're able to move Borak Arts to Georgetown after 2 years in Kuala Lumpur. And I think the idea is that whilst we perhaps complete the various activities that's happening in Georgetown by providing an intellectual discourse platform, we hope that we're able to go to different states in Malaysia. That's one. So we can also engage the different local communities in our country. But 2 is that we are also very open in terms of bringing this platform to different ASEAN countries. And we have already started seeding that idea to a specific country in mind. But look, at the end of the day, the seeding starts via a relationship, and visiting that country a few times just to see whether it would also be of value to them. So going global in terms of branding and in terms of reach, yes. But in terms of our movement, I'd like to think that we will only move within ASEAN, because I think it belongs to the ASEAN community.
Correct. Right. And then only with that we can develop the sense of belonging in ASEAN, not only Malaysia or any certain countries. We really need to develop that in a particular sense, because you go outside and you ask people what's ASEAN, not many people, we already know, not many people can answer what ASEAN is all about. But with the performing arts element and with this theme, the ASEAN and the future, people will feel more what is really ASEAN all about to them. And then it's more relatable, because when people tend to think ASEAN has a more political sense, a more economical sense. But having performing arts, it's something that they can enjoy and also learn from them. So it's a great platform, I would say.
Well, I have gone through very briefly the ASEAN blueprint. And when it comes to culture and heritage, it's just culture and heritage. It's about preserving our culture, heritage, and traditional arts. But there's no mention about anything beyond that. So I'm also interested to know and find out eventually via these discussions where contemporary arts or anything beyond traditional arts, where is there a space in this ASEAN discussion? Because otherwise, if we continue to just focus on one thread, when we have so multiple threads and different layers of generations coming in, we need to move also with times and be relevant to them.
So also as a regional arts festival, you focus a lot on encouraging conversations, encouraging debates between different practitioners and also business leaders. And why is this important?
Well, I guess like I said earlier, I think relationships always... you start dating, then you get married, right? So I guess in a way, it's brewing that relationship. And, sometimes something may happen, and sometimes it just doesn't. And that's just sometimes how destiny can be. But at the end of the day, I get Borak Arts has always remained a knowledge, intellectual discourse platform with the aim of promoting accessibility of information, tools and ideas on how to bring works or discussions forward, encourage cultural mobility, and create alliances between the ecosystem players and the artists. And that is done because we don't know sometimes who the stakeholders are in the ecosystem, and sometimes the stakeholders are ignorant or may not know who the people are on the ground. So these relationships are important. But Borak Arts is, we're not an arts festival. We're just that platform, and we go into festivals as a way to complete the festival, and as a way for our international community to also go down on the ground to their festival to get to know what they have to offer.
So at the end of the day, with everyone attending Borak Art Series, what do you hope that they take away from this?
That they will remember that there is such a platform, an existing platform. I think the arts community, we have a habit of coming together, but sometimes we don't know when to come together. So this platform exists, and we want them to remember that this platform exists, and we want them to take away the relationships and experiences that they've had. It should be a platform where you spark conversations.
And of course there are also other festivals, conferences available in KL or in Malaysia, and I think the best thing to do is to always keep on the lookout for these events and to see what it has to offer, because all these platforms are very, very important for us to get our product out there and show it to the world, or even to some of the countries that you mentioned who are very, very interested in what we have here. So before we wrap things up, how can they get more information about Borak Arts, also about My Performing Arts Agency?
Oh my God, thank you so much for asking, Gowri, because I realized I never mentioned anything about that. Okay, so the event is 29th, 30th August, and more information is on mypaa.com.my/Borak Arts, BORAKARTS. It's 150 ringgit for 2 days. And that includes coffee breaks. And otherwise, if you just choose to come on one day, that's 80 ringgit. So it's quite affordable. International conferences, sometimes we pay $800 US to even attend. So it's really very affordable, and we would encourage you to come at least once a year. Come and meet these people.
So I think we will be there, since Grace will be performing as well.
You're going to Penang. People go to Penang.
So to everyone who's listening, Borak Art Series is happening, like you mentioned, August 29 and 30th, 2015, in Georgetown, Penang, at St. Giles Wembley Premier Hotel. And of course we have speakers from a lot of different countries: Indonesia, Cambodia, Cambodia, Australia, and of course from France, Singapore, and
Japan
our very
and
own
Germany.
country, Malaysia.
Yeah.
So it's a very good opportunity to meet people from all over the world and to find out how to get your product out there, and also to get advice from world-class experts. So thank you so much, Izan, for joining us today and enlightening us about the platform
Thank you.
for
Thank
budding
you.
performing artists. It
Thank
was
you for
great
having
talking to
me.
you.
Thank you, Gowri. Thank you.